Every family has one secret they never speak of. She is 24 years old. She is the youngest, the one we all protected, the one who was never supposed to know. And yet, out of all of us, she was the one my father trusted with the heaviest letter of all. We didn't know that then. We found out the moment she walked back into the house, after reading it alone in her car. She didn't cry. She didn't shake. She walked straight to the living room wall, took down the family photograph, the one that had been hanging there since before I was born, placed it face down on the table, and said 3 words. "Who is she?" Nobody answered. Because nobody knew what she was talking about, we looked at each other, we looked at the photograph, we looked at her, and for the first time in my life I saw something in my youngest sister's eyes that I had never seen before. Not grief, not anger, something colder than both. Certainty. She already knew the answer. She just wanted to see if any of us would tell the truth. I need to take you back before I take you forward. Because to understand what was in that letter, you need to understand who my sister was before she read it. She was the light of our family. That is not a poetic way of saying it. That is simply what she was. The one who remembered everyone's birthdays. The one who called just to check in. The one who sat with my mother during the long, quiet evenings after the funeral and didn't say anything because she understood that sometimes presence is worth more than words. She was the one my father called on random afternoons just to hear her voice. She told me that once. She said, "Papa used to call me for no reason. He would talk for 5 minutes about nothing. The weather, something he saw on the street, a bird in the garden, and then he would say, 'Okay, my love, I'll let you go,' and hang up. I used to think he was just being sweet. Now I think he was storing up the sound of my voice for somewhere he was going, where he wouldn't be able to hear it anymore. When she said that to me, I had to leave the room, because I couldn't let her see me fall apart when she was holding herself together so perfectly. She waited longer than any of us to open her letter, 11 days. While the rest of us were still processing what we had learned, she carried her sealed envelope in her bag every single day. I know, because she told me. She said she could feel it in there, even when she wasn't thinking about it, like a weight that had its own heartbeat. She said, "I knew that whatever was inside was going to divide my life into 2 parts, before the letter and after, and I wasn't ready to live in the after yet, so I kept it with me. Close enough to feel, far enough to survive." On the 11th day, she drove to the place where our father used to take us when we were small, a park near the edge of the city. There was a bench there where he used to sit and watch us run. She parked the car facing the park. She could see the bench from where she sat, and she opened the letter. She didn't tell me everything that was in it, not that night, not for a long time after. What she told me slowly over weeks. The way you tell someone something that you are still translating from a language only your heart speaks. But here is what I know. My father began her letter differently from the others. He didn't start with facts. He didn't start with confessions. He started with a question. He wrote, "Do you remember the woman in the blue coat?" My sister did remember. She had just never known who the woman was. When my sister was 7 years old, a woman came to our house. This was something my sister had never told anyone. She had buried it so deep she had almost convinced herself it was a dream. A woman in a blue coat standing at our front door. My father answered. My sister was watching from the top of the stairs. She saw my father's face change the moment he opened the door. She saw the woman say something. She saw my father look back into the house as if checking that no one was watching. He didn't see my sister on the stairs. He stepped outside, closed the door behind him. They spoke for a long time on the front step. My sister watched through the small window on the landing. She couldn't hear anything, but she saw my father reach into his pocket, hand the woman something. The woman looked down at it, then she looked up at my father, and she nodded, and she left. My father came back inside, straightened his jacket, went back to whatever he had been doing, and never mentioned it, not once, not ever. My sister was 7 years old. She didn't understand what she had seen, but she remembered it, the way children remember things that their minds are not yet old enough to interpret, but are too important to let go of. In the letter, my father explained everything. The woman in the blue coat was someone from his past, from before he met my mother, from a chapter of his life that he had closed and locked and never opened again, except that it opened itself, the way those chapters always do. She had come to the house that day with something he hadn't known about. A child, not standing with her, not mentioned directly, but present in everything she said, in everything she was asking for. My father wrote, "I am not asking you to understand this. I am not asking you to forgive me for it quickly. I am only asking you to hear it the way I am telling it," which is with complete honesty, for the first time in my life, on paper, because I was never brave enough to say it out loud. He had known for years, since before my younger sister was born, since before the blue coat and the front doorstep. He had known, and he had made a choice. Not a good choice, not a clean one, but a human one, made by a man who was afraid of losing everything he loved by admitting what he had done. There is a child somewhere in this world who shares our blood. My father wrote that clearly, without softening it, without wrapping it in careful language to make it easier to swallow. He wrote it the way you write something when you know you will not be there to answer the questions that follow. Directly. Completely. He wrote, "I sent money every month. For years. Through someone I trusted. I made sure there was enough. For school. For food. For whatever was needed. I could not be present. But I could make sure that my absence did not mean abandonment. There is a difference. It is not a comfortable difference. But it is a real one. And I need you to know it." He gave my sister a name, an address, a phone number. And then he wrote something that she repeated to me weeks later, sitting in my kitchen with her hands wrapped around a cup of tea. She had stopped drinking. He wrote, "I chose you to receive this letter because you are the only one of my children who loves without conditions. I have watched you your whole life. The way you give her, the way you stay, the way you never make someone feel small for being human. I need that love to reach someone who has never had it. I am not asking you to be their family. I am asking you to decide with the same open heart you have always had whether you want to be. That choice belongs to you. It always did. I just never found the courage to give it to you while I was still here to see what you would do with it." My sister sat with that letter for 3 weeks before she told anyone what was in it. 3 weeks of carrying it the same way she had carried the sealed envelope. Close enough to feel, heavy enough to know it was real. She told me first, then our mother. I will not tell you about that conversation. Some things that happen between a mother and her children belong only to them. What I will tell you is that my mother sat quietly for a very long time. And then she said something that I did not expect. She said, "He told me once, a long time ago. I told him I didn't want to know the details. I told him to handle it, and he did. For 30 years he handled it, without complaint, without asking me to carry any of it. That was his way. It was always his way." My sister made her decision 6 weeks later. She didn't tell us she was going. She drove alone. To the address my father had left, she sat outside for a long time, the same way she had sat outside the park, facing something she wasn't sure she was ready for, and then she got out of the car and knocked on the door. I don't know everything that happened inside that house. She has shared pieces with me, slowly, over time. What I know is this. She stayed for 4 hours. She came home with a photograph, a small one, taken a long time ago. A young man who has our father's eyes. She put it on her bedside table, next to a photograph of our father. And when I saw it there, I had to sit down on the edge of her bed because the resemblance was so clear, so undeniable, so completely and unmistakably our father, that I understood in that moment what my sister had understood the second she saw him at that door. That grief does not end when the person dies. Sometimes it is just beginning. I have thought about my father differently since the third letter. Not with less love, with more complexity, because that is what it means to truly know a person. Not the version they show at dinner, not the version that calls on birthdays, the full version, the one that made mistakes, the one that carried shame, the one that spent 30 years trying to quietly fix everything they had broken before the people they loved most had to find the pieces. My father was not a perfect man. I know that now in a way I didn't before, but he was something rarer than perfect. He was a man who faced his own failures honestly, in the end, on paper, with shaking hands, when it was the hardest possible time to do so, and he trusted the people he loved most to handle the truth better than he had handled it himself. He was right, we did. If you are watching this, and you are carrying something that you have never told anyone, I am not here to tell you what to do with it. I am not here to judge the choices you made when you were afraid or young or simply human in a moment that demanded more than you had. But I will tell you what I watched my father do. He didn't run. He didn't pretend. He found a way. even at the very end, even with a pen and shaking hands, and a voice that could no longer speak to tell the truth. And the truth, as painful as it was, as complicated as it remains, set more people free than his silence ever could have. Tell the people you love the truth, not all at once, not brutally, but honestly, before it is too late to be the one who tells it. Tell me something in the comments tonight. Is there something you have been carrying that the people closest to you don't know? You don't have to share the details. You don't have to share anything at all. But if you want to, even just to say, yes, I understand what this family is living, I am here, I read every comment, every single one, and I never judge, not once, not ever. Part 4 comes next week. The 4th letter was addressed to my mother, not the one she opened the day after the funeral. There was a second one, sealed separately, with a note on the outside that said, "Open this one alone, open this one last, and please forgive me before you finish reading it." My mother has not told us what was inside. She read it alone in her bedroom on a Tuesday afternoon, 3 months after the funeral. She came out an hour later. Her eyes were red, but she was smiling, a smile we had not seen on her face since before my father got sick. She said nothing. She went to the kitchen. She cooked his favourite meal, set a place for him at the table, and we all sat down together and ate in silence, and it was the most peaceful evening our family had shared in years. Part 4, next week. Subscribe, you are not ready.